item 2.3, any questions or comments on it? Member McDougall.
Yes, I just want to be certain that I understand what is being proposed, because I see this as one of the most important responsibilities we as a board have, i.e. to ensure that our facilities are there to meet the student demand of the future. And my assumption is from the presentation that the assessment of need in terms of new construction is at least theoretically being met by the figures there, but there's a slight shortfall in the modernization side, which is understood given the shortness of wealth. But again, my purpose in commenting is to ensure that this proposal, as best we can estimate, will provide for facilities that are projected to be needed in the future. So.
I would agree with you, Member McDougall, and I'm going to ask Vice Chancellor Troy or Vice Chancellor Skinner or
Vice Chancellor
to comment on that. Furthermore, I was going to comment at the board's discretion, and again, I agree with Member McDougall. This might be something that we want to spend a little more time on and actually have a more formal presentation, but I'll let you respond, Vice Chancellor.
Yeah, a couple of things I think about. I think your question speaks. I think the question goes to the heart of what kind of enrollment growth we can expect over time. Is that part of the question? And I know that's probably informed somewhat by the last couple of years, where we've seen some reductions, including this current budget, to our enrollment. But I would note that over the past 15 years, we have seen about a 44% increase in student enrollment. I think we see that some of the budget actions are cyclical. We saw that about a decade ago as well. Things went down when the budget was tough, and then we came back up as the budgets returned to something akin to normalcy. I think given the enrollment, the need for community college services in the future, we can expect in the long term that enrollment will continue to go up. In fact, I think the 10-year enrollment projections that we've used are actually fairly conservative. So I'm confident that there is going to be need for growth out there. And of course, to plan for that need, for a new building to come online once it's approved takes about 5 to 8 years. So we don't want to be caught short and not being able to serve students because we don't have facilities to house them.
Member Ramos, you wanted to say something to the Chancellor.
I did, yes, thank you. I really appreciate this line of questioning coming up and the projection perhaps for a need for deeper conversation, because while I do appreciate the professionalism of the reporting that we received and the hard work of staff to juggle what are moving targets essentially in a time of need, and recognizing Vice Chancellor Troy's comment that we are expecting a pretty overwhelming surge in demand on our institutions, I just think we need to have some more strategic clarification of not just the scope of our need, but the idea of how we think differently about capital investment. And for example, the Chancellor has reminded us that Butte Community College has now gone solar with the prospect of millions and millions of dollars of savings in core expenses coming with that. Can we and should we begin to think more systematically about ways that we incentivize our districts and our campuses to move in that direction? I think this would have tremendous implications for longer-term capital and other costs. We've talked under Vice President Perez's leadership about distance learning as something that probably warrants some deeper, not only study, but investment over time, again, to minimize the pressures on the system to have to build through bricks and mortar investments significantly expensive projects that perhaps can be addressed more economically through different strategies. So while I think, giving deference to the staff's hard work, I'm prepared to support, at least provisionally, the plan that's been presented to us. I think clearly 5 years in this environment is, like 5 decades. Things are moving, changing rapidly. Somehow or other, I think we need to have an ongoing conversation about how we rethink what investments mean in that more systematic, evolving context.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, Vice President Paris.
The other thing that I would like to have a little bit of dialogue around is just the checks and balances. Unfortunately, over the last year, there's been a couple of occurrences where we approve, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understand it to work is that we approve these projects, but the locals actually manage them. They actually assign them to local contractors, and we've had a couple of situations where things have been questioned as far as the integrity around those contracts being assigned. And so I would just like to have a little bit more information around how we can monitor that more closely or have some type of involvement without jeopardizing the local control over it, but to ensure that there's integrity in that process and that we're not setting ourselves up for any more of that type of situations to occur.
Chancellor.
Well, I can address a few of these issues. One is you received a report on distance learning, and you noted that despite the decrease that's occurred in the enrollments in community colleges, and keep in mind that decrease did not come from a lack of demand, it came from a lack of resources. The only reason we have less enrollment today than we had a year ago was the fact that our colleges were forced to offer fewer courses. And in fact, the evidence is that our classes are more impacted than they've ever been. And we estimated that we turned away 140,000 students that just could not find a class. So the demand is there. What happens in the facilities program? Well, the facilities program is funded in two ways. One by a state bond and two by local bonds. If you remember, about a decade ago, we were fortunate to get the rules changed on what percentage it would take to pass a local bond. It was at one time, it required a 2/3 vote. Today, it only requires a 55% vote. So community colleges throughout the state, and they have been largely successful in their bond request. Over 90% of the bonds requested of the voters by community colleges have been passed. So a lot of the monies that come into our building program are monies that come into our building program as a result of local bond money as well as a state bond money. And we also tried to explain to you what the checks and balances were. There's no way that, for one thing, some of the money is local money, but secondly, we do approve, number one, the general budget, and if there's a change in the budget, they have to come to us. We also approve, or rather the Department of State Architects approves whether or not they meet the requirements of the ADA Act, that is American Disabilities Act. But we have neither the staff nor the authority to go down and oversee the minutia, that is the regular building. The contracts are let by the local board of trustees, and the oversight is done by the local community college district. If there's something egregious from the standpoint of chicanery or illegal activities, then we have some right to step in. But right now, we have neither, as I said, neither the authority nor the staff nor the money to actually oversee the building of our buildings. I would say that overall, California community colleges are in better shape in terms of facilities than we are in terms of operating money. And the reason being is because of that local bond money that has come available. But we don't have the same right to go out to the taxpayers and only ask for a 55% for a parcel tax. In fact, it takes a 2/3 vote to get a parcel tax. And there's only been one community college district in the state, San Mateo Community College District, that was successful in a parcel tax, and they passed it by a few hundred votes. So we are in bad shape as far as the operating expenses are concerned. I just thought maybe that'd give you a little bit of an idea. Yes, we are moving aggressively in distance learning. In fact, of all the segments of public higher education, we spend a greater percentage and offer more courses in distance education than either UC or CSU. In fact, UC just recently said they were going to study the possibility of distance education, and we've been in the business for a decade or two. So we'll be glad to come back to you and offer even a greater detail about the capital outlay plan. For years, this office has had a very structured way in which they prioritize the demands. It's based upon square footage, it's based upon the kind of use of the facility, whether it's going to be, in other words, as a former college president, I'm rather intimately aware of all of that, in other words, we could get, at Pasadena City College, we could get money for a library, but we couldn't get money for additional classroom space because we'd already fulfilled that requirement. Now, they probably have grown enough now that they're able to do that. But I want you to know that rather than, one of the things that we've been very careful to avoid is not reacting to political pressure from, say, a legislator who suddenly says, well, I think that the community college in my district ought to get the money that comes as a result of this building that I think we ought to build. We look at those very carefully and we say, do you meet the qualifications that are required in order to get the money? Now, if the local bond, they have to tell the local people what they're going to spend the money for, but I will tell you that they don't have to follow those same rules because they have local, if they have local money, they can build a library whether they qualify for it or not. But as far as the state money is concerned, we carefully take that through a process and we carefully prioritize and say, well, this college is next in line and we have a specific lineup. And that's just a thumbnail sketch, and I will be glad to come to you and even give you a greater detail, but we have made some presentations in the past about this process.
Yeah. Chancellor, let me ask, or maybe Dan, do we do any harm by not approving this today and asking for a further presentation?
No, I don't think there'd be any great harm in doing that. I would say that these plans that we're coming forward with today do reflect our analysis of the projects that have come forward. We are required by both Government Code and Education Code to come up with 5-year plans for the colleges in regard to some of the issues that have been raised about online learning and things like that. Note that the facilities plans are based upon educational master plans developed by the colleges, so to the extent they've incorporated all that,
No,
I think they're included in the proposals.
Yeah, I don't think it is a matter of that, but more of a matter of the Board of Governors having a better understanding. I mean, this report is very good, but it's always helpful, I think, to have a session where it's presented and we can ask questions. Having said that, I'll defer to my colleagues as to whether we'd like to move forward with this or pursue something else. Member McDougall.
I'm personally very comfortable in moving ahead to approve this item. I was trying to look at it more from the larger issue standpoint, that as a board, we are looking to the future and ensuring that the projected growth for the colleges will be able to be met by facilities. And we're planning for that even in an environment that is very challenging financially. And I think that's been responded to. I think we will benefit by a session that maybe looks more thoroughly at that and other alternatives such have been mentioned by other board members. But I'd like to move the item personally.
So maybe we can take Member Ramos's suggestion that we go ahead and move forward, but with the understanding that we'd like to have a deeper understanding and more of a discussion. So with that, Member McDougall moves the item.
A second.
Second by Member Haley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. We will break for lunch now, and I'd like to be, I don't know, could we be back here at 1:15 or so, 1:20? Okay.